Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marta and I am the chef and author of Sense and Edibility, a site where I teach you everything you need to know about cooking, baking, and cocktail making. Today we are preparing 4 different types of masa. Now technically it's only 2 different types of masa, but one of them is made into 3 different flavors. Anyways, okay, yeah. So we're making masa for pasteles. We're making masa de Guineo, which is masa of bananas or paste of bananas. And we're making masa de Yuca, which is a paste or a it's not a mass, it's like a puree of yuca. But before we get into the actual video and some explanation, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and sign up for notifications so that you can get notified every time I post a new video like this one. This is the most important part of the pastel. Without it, we wouldn't have pasteles, we would have meat in banana leaves, which is okay. Let me explain a little bit about these masas before we get into the actual recipe video. Masa de Guineo is made with guineos verde, which are ungassed cooking bananas. They are very much the same banana, Cavendish bananas, that you would find in your banana bread, except they are ungassed, which means they stay green much longer and they have 0 sweetness to them and they're very, very firm. What we do is we puree them with a bunch of other vegetables called vianda, and we create a masa, which is what this is. It's a puree of sorts. So I made 3 different types of masa de Guineo. They all have the same base of veggies or vianda. What's different about them is what I've added to them to make them softer. I add stock to all of my masa because I like very fluffy, very tender, smooth pasteles. And that was the way my grandmother-in-law and my mommy taught me how to make it. In this bowl, we have a vegan Masa de Guineo. It is made with vegetable stock. This one is a pork Masa de Guineo. It has the ham stock that we made in the previous episode. This one is a chicken Masa de Guineo. It has chicken stock. You can also use turkey stock. So these are the 3 types of Masa de Guineo. For the Masa de Yuca, it's made with yuca, not green bananas. Yuca is also called manioc or cassava. And I also add a little bit of yautía or malanga. It's similar to taro root, or could be replaced with taro root. And in this one, I've added the chicken stock so that it's a very neutral masa de yuca. Obviously, vegans won't be able to eat it, but pork eaters and chicken eaters can eat it. So I can add pork filling to this or chicken to it and it'll be fine. Okay, so let's get into how I make my masas for pasteles. Okay, we are going to start with the masa de Guineo base. This is the way masa de Guineo used to be made in the old days. You take the fine holes of the hand shredder and shred it, and you'd end up shredding part of your fingers, and blood and probably skin cells and flesh would get into it. You'd get a very nice foamy masa for your pasteles, but imagine the amount of work that went into this back in the day. This is what it looked like. Grateful for our ancestors, but yeah, never again. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 hands of guineos verde. You can cut them off individually. You can cut them off in 2s. Or you can cut them off all together with your very sharp paring knife. Be careful with your knife. If you're not used to your knife, do this on a cutting board. cut off both stem ends of each guineo. And then what you want to do after that is make a slit down the front and back of each guineo. This is going to help soften the peel quicker than if you were to just leave it whole. What I usually do is I just lop off the stem, or the stem that holds the bunch together, and just get rid of it. I still obviously cut off the stem ends, and then I make slits down front and back of each guineo. The water will get through to the bottom of the peel if you do this. So next, what you want to do is put it into a very large mixing bowl and add the hottest tap water you can get. We have like surgical grade hot water here, so it doesn't take long. Set this to the side and let your guineos soak for about 15 to 20 minutes while you prepare the other vianda, which are the calabaza, the boniato or the batata, which is the white sweet potato, and the yautía. Larger pieces of yautía are called malanga, and you can also use taro root for this. But for now, we're going to take care of the calabaza by cutting it into 1/2 to 1 inch strips. And then we're going to take our paring knife and very carefully remove the tough rind from each wedge of calabaza. Now, once you've removed your rind, you can always compost it or discard it if you want to. And then you're just going to leave the calabaza in these slices and add them to a large mixing bowl. I have a little trash bin off to the side, so I don't have to go to the trash can every time I make cuts. Add the calabaza to that large mixing bowl, and then let's move on to the boniato or the batata or the white sweet potato. This is just like peeling any other potato. The thing about this potato in particular is that it's very hard to cut. It's much like a sweet potato in that way. I noticed that there's a bit of a blemish, and I just want to get rid of it, so I'm just taking care of that. And then I cut these into 1 inch thick sticks before I move on to my yautía. I take care of the yautía last because it's slippery and it's harder to deal with than the rest of the vianda. You're just going to use a vegetable peeler and go to town. Take off all the furry skin that's on it. And this is why I say use big yautía, because the little ones are so hard to peel because they become slippery once you peel them. Cut them into 3-inch slices, and then cut the slices in half and then cut it in quarters. I want to show you the difference between yautía blanca and yautía lila. Lila is this one here on the right. It has purple veins, and yautía blanca is white. They both taste the same, and you can use them interchangeably. Go ahead and add that to the bowl with the rest of the vianda, and we're going to take care of peeling our guineos verde. Now, these have very, very hard skins. They're much like green plantains or platanos in that way. Soaking them in the hot water keeps them or softens the peel without cooking or softening the banana, which is what I prefer. So use the fleshy sides of your thumb to push up the peel and remove it. This is called the mancha de plátano. It's the stain of plátanos, which is a sign of a good country Puerto Rican. Now, some people will buy special machines that are made for grating pastele masa. I refuse to use those machines because they serve only one purpose, which is grinding masa for pasteles. It's a waste of equipment, it's a waste of space, in my opinion, and it's a waste of money. Instead, I use a 14-quart food processor, and I first grate the vianda with the grating attachment. That's right here. I transfer that to a bowl, and once all of the vianda is grated, I switch from the grater attachment to the metal blade. I add the shredded vianda to the food processor and I pulse it 30 seconds to a minute. I stir it around, pulse it again for another 30 seconds, and then I toss it into the bowl. Once everything has been pureed, I mix it together to make sure it's nice and cohesive, and then I repeat the process, pureeing it 30 seconds to a minute each time. This works just as well as a fancy machine, and it serves more than one purpose in my kitchen, which is why I love it. So you can use the other thing, but this works just fine. Now to prepare the masa, add some adobo, the prepared achiote oil, and this is vegetable stock. You're going to stir everything around and then add more achiote oil until you get a nice orangey color and the masa is nice and smooth and it looks like this. This is your vegan Masa de Guineos. Now if you add adobo, chicken stock, and achiote oil, mix this all around very well. You can also use turkey stock for this type of masa if you want to. You have created chicken Masa de Guineos. So this is for chicken filling. Adobo, the ham stock that we made in our earlier episode, achiote oil. Mix this all together. The achiote oil adds slowly. You don't need to add it all at once. You want to add it in, sections so you get the right color and you make your pork Masa de Guineos. Okay, let's move on to making the Masa de Yuca. Yuca or cassava or manioc is a beast to handle because it is hard and it's fibrous. Cut the yuca into 3 to 4 inch long sections and make a slit down its length. You don't need to go too deep. You see, I just made a really, like a nick almost. Do it on the opposite side and use the base of your knife or the heel of your knife blade to get under the skin. Just, it's not even an eighth of an inch, and use it to lift up on the peel. This is how you peel yuca easily. You can also use a vegetable peeler, but you're probably going to dull it out really quick. There's another way you can do it where you just make kind of like a spiral cut into the skin of the yuca. Not deep, but you're going to do the same thing where you go under it with the heel of your knife and lift the peel up and away from the flesh of the yuca itself. So those are 3 different types of ways you can peel your yuca. You want to cut it into quarters because yuca has a very fibrous vein that runs right down the center of the plant, and you want to get rid of that because if not, it's going to come through on your pasteles. Just cut at it, get rid of it. It serves no purpose. Once that's done, you're going to grate your yuca just like you grated the vianda for your Masa de Guineo. Once all your yuca is grated, you're going to add it to a big metal or big mixing bowl. And what you want to do is cover the grated yuca with, again, pretty hot water, because what you want to do is soak out the chemical that is in the yuca or cassava that is toxic. You're going to smell it. As soon as you start grating it, you're going to smell that chemical. Just soak it for about 15 to 20 minutes. You'll see it's going to change color. You're going to drain it and press out the liquid. Now take some yautía. I've used 2 medium-sized yautía here, and grate it just like you grated the cassava or the yuca. And once that's grated, add it to the bowl with the yuca and return both the yuca and the yautía to the food processor and puree it to a fine paste. Now, because the yuca is dry, you're going to have to add a little bit of liquid. So I'm adding some chicken stock here to give it some movement in the food processor. Now transfer that to a mixing bowl and continue pureeing the rest of the yuca and yautía, adding chicken stock as necessary. Now to finish it, you're going to add your adobo, some chicken stock, and the achiote oil that we made in our earlier episode, and we're going to mix this in. Yuca, masa de yuca has a very distinct, very bright yellow color, so you're probably going to need to add more achiote oil. And remember that yuca is liquidy. It's going to start forming some liquid in the bottom of the bowl, so don't overdo it with the liquid. And here's your masa de yuca. Again, it's much drier, but you're going to notice when you start forming your pasteles that it's going to be looser. Let me answer some frequently asked questions that I get about these masa recipes. Pasteles are most certainly a labor of love. Whenever I make pasteles, I always think about my ancestors. I think of my mother, who spent a lot of time away from her family in New York and in Puerto Rico because she was an active duty airman. And I remember seeing her in the kitchen making her pasteles by herself. When I became an army wife, I realized just how much work she put into it. I also think about pasteles making sessions with my husband's grandmother, who I call my suegra, or my mother-in-law, Abuela Leria, who gave me tips on how she makes her pasteles. I incorporate all of that into my masa for pasteles. And though it is considered laborious, it is something that I thoroughly enjoy because it connects me to my Puerto Rican, African, and my indigenous Taino cultures. This is something that really means a lot to me, a lot to my family whenever I'm doing it. So I'm glad I could share it with you. You cannot use yellow bananas for this recipe. Yellow bananas are sweet, and that is going to make your masa very sweet. It's also going to make your masa very slimy because those bananas have already started ripening. You have to use ungassed green bananas. Go to your grocer, go to your produce manager, and ask them to order a case of ungassed cooking bananas. That's what you're going to use for your masa de Guineo. Masa de Guineo is exactly that. It's just masa of green banana. You don't have to add the things that I add. I add them because they are a part of my family's recipe and because they give color and because they give different flavors. They also contribute to the texture of my final pastel, which is something that a lot of people love. You can replace the batata or boniato, which is the white sweet potato, with russet potato. Don't use a lot of russet potato because that actually makes your masa very watery and it can make it too loose. You can replace the yautía with malanga. You notice that I grabbed a yautía lila, which is a purple yautía, and you can see by the purple veins in the center of the root. That doesn't matter. You can use white yautía or malanga lila, or yautía lila, which is purple. Doesn't really matter. What else? Calabaza. Calabaza is called Kabocha squash in English. You can replace it with acorn squash. You can replace it with butternut squash, or you can omit it altogether. I like adding it because it adds more color and it adds more texture to my final masa. What I do not recommend, and I know a lot of people do it, and if you do this, this is your recipe, this is your family's recipe, more power to you. I'm not judging you. I don't do it personally. I do not add plátano to my masa at all. Plátano, if you cook plátano, if you fry it, or if you boil it, you notice that it gets hard as it starts to cool down. The same thing is going to happen in your pasteles unless you cut it with a lot of other viandas. When I was in Germany, the produce manager would not order ungassed cooking bananas for me, so I had to use plátanos to make my pasteles. And what I had to do was cut it with a lot of yautía and a lot of, I'm so sorry, I just saw like the biggest deer just cross my field of vision. Okay, I'm focused. What I had to do was cut that plátano with a lot of yautía and a lot of potato to make it soft. And I was not a fan of the flavor. I was not a fan of the extra work I had to do. So that's why I never use plátano if I have green bananas available to me. If you don't have green bananas available to you, use half plátano, a third of yautía, and a third of potato, russet potato. That way you get a nice smooth masa. Again, if you use plátanos for your masa all the time, then you don't have to listen to me because you already do it. So, good job. The reason why I soak the yuca is because when I shred yuca, I smell the chemical in yuca that is actually toxic. And I don't like that smell because it transfers into my masa. So what I do is I soak it for 10 to 15 minutes. I squeeze out that liquid and I make my yuca very dry, and then I add yautía to soften the yuca a bit, and I go ahead and add my sal just like I do to my Masa de Guineo. And I also add my achiote oil to add color, because if you don't, your pastel de yuca will be very bland. Not bland, but very colorless. And we like color in our pasteles. So that's why I shred and squeeze out the juice of my yuca. I don't like the smell of fresh yuca in my, or the taste of fresh yuca unsqueezed or unsoaked in my pastel. You can make your masa for pasteles 2 to 3 months in advance and freeze it. What you're going to have to do after you thaw it in the refrigerator overnight, give it a stir, and you may have to strain it because sometimes liquid leaches out after it's frozen, because obviously the liquids in the masa have frozen and they've now thawed, and now you have a watery masa, and that's not what you want, because you're still going to add the guisado, the stew meat, not stew meat, the stew liquid to your pastel, and you don't want your pastel to be too loose. You can make masa, I would say, up to 2 days ahead of when you plan to assemble your pasteles. When you do that, what you want to do is take, this was for my yuca. What you want to do is take some plastic and press it right on top of the masa, like this. Like that? Okay, say so. Like that, to keep it from oxidizing. It's, you know, the yuca is not as bad as the Masa de Guineo because they're guineos, they're bananas, they're gonna oxidize, they're gonna turn brown. So you wanna press plastic right up against the surface so it doesn't oxidize too much. If it oxidizes, just certain, it's not gonna kill you, right? It's not a big deal. But you can't make it 2 days in advance so that you're not making everything on the same day. This is what I'm trying to tell you, right? I'm trying to explain to you that you can break the components for your pasteles up and not be overwhelmed with all the work on one day. If you like alcapurrias, which is something that you may not know about if you're not Hispanic Caribbean, alcapurrias are picadillo stuffed fritters that are made with the masa of green bananas. So that's a whole different recipe though. So, but you can make them, and I think that's it. I think that's it for this. Let me make sure. Let me think. Let me look off into the space. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, thank you for watching this very important episode on how to make Masa de Guineo and Masa de Yuca for your pasteles. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and sign up for notifications so that you can get notified every time I post a new video, like the one that's coming up that you really want to see. And I will see you over there. Bye.